Hello, this is my journey entry, personal observation, environmental and community personal discomfort. After many years of traveling, living with different states and experiencing various cultures and community, I found myself, confronting a level of discomfort that I have never ever felt before. It was difficult to fully explain, but the environment around me now feels increasingly unsettling and unfamiliar compared to the balanced environment I have experienced over the past, over other places throughout my life over the past years. In recent years, I have become more aware of behavior and social dynamics that feels predatorily or predatorish, I might say, manipulative and psychological, intuitive, or intentional. So some of these situations remind me of this kind of story that has surfaced publicly in a higher profile, scandaling involve powerful individuals that secretly social circles where inappropriate behavior and conduct are targeted individuals through manipulations and where later been revealed. Observing the patterns of those dynamics within everyday environment has caused me to question many things about the people and systems around me. What troubles me is the way these behavior appears to influence everyday community life. From my perspective, there is a situation where certain individuals attempt to create uncomfortable or sexual suggestive movements or environments, even in space where such behaviors should not exist. Those behaviors should not exist. In some cases, it feels as though people are intentionally trying to provoke a reaction or challenge boundaries and undermine the due diligence or dignity of others. I have lived and traveled in different regions in the country, and I have also seen communities where family structure and social balance appears much stronger. And those environments have a clean respect for the roles in manhood and womanhood, and families grow within a stable household structures where both parents worked together to raise and guide their children. The balance creates a sense of order and responsibility within the community. Returning to home in Chicago, where my birthplace, Chicago, indigenously, I have noticed a different atmosphere in some neighborhoods, and young boys appear exposed to adult behavior far too early in life, sometimes before they even develop the basic foundation of education and childhood development. In my review, such as these influence comes from the behavior of adults within the surrounding environment, including the presence of drugs and hypersexualized social patterns and other lifestyle influence that seems to discomfort natural development of young people. Another observation that has unsettled me is the way some men appear to engage in behavior intent to provoke or challenge my masculinity or the masculinity of other men. At times, it seems as certain individual attempts to create situations that suggest or impose sexual narratives onto others, even when those narratives are unwelcome or inappropriate. When this behavior becomes normalized or ignored, it can create an atmosphere of discomfort and confusions about basic social boundaries. Communities and communications within the community has always become difficult at times. Conversation about boundaries, family values, and natural balance between man and woman are not always received in the way one might expect. In some cases, people appear to open almost anything open to almost anything, and that openness sometimes, what can I say, blurs the lens of respect of personal dignity. Since returning to my home state and workplace, I have also experienced moments that felt intentionally, intrusive. There have been occasions where individuals rushed into the restroom immediately after me, or approached me closely while I'm working with my back turned. Situations like this may appear small on the surface, but repeated patterns creates a sense of that one is being watched or tested or psychological pressured. In addition, there has been movements where individuals involved in street-level activities, including prostitution, seems to be operating within the same atmosphere of sexual interaction surrounding my pressure or presence, some might say. I guess my presence bring pressure, I don't know. Whether intentional or consistency, these patterns contribute to an environment that feels uncomfortable and unnatural. Taking all this together, these experiences have created a growing sense that certain social environments are becoming increasingly distorted from what I understand as the natural order or respectful human interaction. When the balance between man and woman, adult and children, and the community responsibility becomes blurred, the consequences are rippled through the family and entirely neighborhoods. As someone who identifies strongly with the indigenous autonomous heritage here in North America, in Chicago, especially Bronzeville born, if you know the history of Bronzeville, these observations weigh heavy on my mind. The healing and rebuilding and the community requires a return to balance, respect, and responsibility within the family structure and social environment. This journey entry is a simple record of my personal observation and reflection, an attempt to document what I have seen and what I have felt, and the question that continues to rise as I navigate the change dynamics of the world around me. As I continue to reflect on the environment around me, I also want to document another aspect of my experience that has to contribute to my discomfort. I am a man who is naturally discomfort in my own skin. I have never felt the need to modify or alternate my body in order to fit social expectations. My sense of identity and confidence comes from simply being who I am. I am that I am. However, I have increasingly noticed situations where people attempt to create pressure or embarrassment around my natural body, or occasionally individuals have made comments about my private areas. Sometimes some saying, looks too little, while delegating to look at it or drawing attention to it or attempt to touch. There have been many moments where I have to stay calm and not snap, where individual attempts to touch me in ways that felt intrusive or inappropriate. These experiences have occurred both while I was working and while moving through my neighborhood. What makes this situation particularly uncomfortable is that they often happen unexpectedly and without any consent or invitation from me, instead of ordinary social interaction or focus suddenly shifts towards sexual commentary or behavior. This dynamic makes it difficult to maintain normal conversations and interaction without the atmosphere becoming sexualized or disrespectful. These situations have involved both women in the neighborhood and at times center certain men who seems unusual focus on the same subject matter. When multiple individuals have behaved this way, it creates an environment where something as simple as existing normal being feel uncomfortable. Because of these experiences, I have often chosen to keep to myself and limit unnecessary reactions. In early years, I was able to have thoughtful and intelligent conversations with many women and without the interaction of being centered around sexual topics or tensions. Those conversations felt balanced and respectful. And most recently, however, I found that those kind of conversations are harder to maintain. In some situations, it seems that social attitudes and ideological pressure, sometimes associated with modern feminist viewpoints or other social agenda, have changed the way certain interactions unfold. As a result, conversation that once felt natural and respectful can quickly shift into a confrontational or uncomfortable territory. These observations are not meant as accusations towards any specific group of people. Rather, they are attempt to my record of certain social dynamics have made ordinary interaction felt increasingly compliant and strange. For me, maintaining personal dignity, boundaries, and self-respect is important. I believe that respect interaction between man and woman should not be centered around humiliation, sexual pleasure, or attempt to provoke discomfort. Writing these reflections in my journal or documenting these reflections in my journal helps me process the environment around me and maintain clarity about my own boundaries and my value as I continue to navigate these experiences in therapy for the better good of ourselves helps. And this process has changed during this, coming from home, coming back home. Another point I felt the need to, for the record, is this reflection is related to how many bodies have become the subject of attentions how my body has become subject to attention and commentary other than the way that makes me feel uncomfortable. There's a difference between art and there's a time and place for everything. I am fully comfortable in my own skin, in my natural state as a man. I have never felt the need to modify or change my body and satisfy or expectation of options of other people, trust me. I understand my own physical nature and natural capabilities. I know how my body responds naturally when I'm generally attracted to a woman. Attraction, intimate, and connections are a natural part of human life, but for me, those experiences belongs within a content of genuine chemistry and mutual respect between man and woman. Because of this, I find it strange and uncomfortable when people attempt to make my body as the focus or a joke. For certain people, commentary or speculations. There have been moments where individuals make remarks or attempt to draw attention to my private area, sometimes in a way that appears intent to embarrass or provoke a reaction, or embrace and to provoke a reaction, In some cases, these behavior has even crossed into attempts to physical contact, which I consider completely inappropriate and disrespectful at certain areas of the body. If only been talking to really one woman, 2 women suspects. I've been back here. The reality is that my body functions the way a natural man body does, So when there is a real attention towards a woman, the body responds naturally. In the chemistry of the affair, in the private areas. And it is a private and personal matter between 2 adults who share genuine interests in one another. It's not something meant for public display or radical or commentary for others. I am not someone who performs for attention or speculation. I am not a person or a performer, or I am certainly not interested in that kind of, aggravation or irritation or provoking explanation, often or portrayed as pornography or media. My understanding is intimate, is grounded in natural attraction, respect, and connection, not performing public sacred duties. Only certain person will understand this process. Because of the respect, the repeated attention placed on the subject of others, I have increasing choosing to keep to myself and maintain distance from situations where people seem focused on sexual normal interaction. It becomes difficult to hold ordinary conversation and social interaction with the atmosphere shift towards consistent sexual undertones or intrusive curiosity. For me, maintaining dignity and privacy, self-respect is essential. A man should be able to exist in his own environment without having his body turned into a topic or speculation or radical. These reflections are simple, my way of documenting the experience that I have contributed to the decision of protecting my boundaries and remaining centered with my own sense of self. The lessons from past relationship and personal boundaries. Over the past years and 3 months, I have intentionally obtained from sexual relationships, intentionally, steps away from sexual relationships. This period has allowed me to reflect deeply in my last intimate relationship, which I now understand was built on a foundation of ultimately became manipulative and harmful. The person I was involved had a history of abuse and trauma, which she scared me about her past. And essentially, I felt a genuine connection rooted in the shape, challenging experience, and I often cared and guidance and that support as my due diligence and people who know me, who I am. However, I later realized that this connection has been exploited. There were individuals associated with her who took advantage of my trust and caregiving skills as an autonomous pioneer. The very guidance and support I often were weaponized against me in a way that left me feeling targeted and violated. These experiences highlighted how abusive patterns can extend beyond single person to involve broader systems of manipulation. As a result, I intentionally stepped back from what I once was called alpha mode. Instead, I have shifted towards a more conscious approach rooted in some shamanic wisdom and karma-free attraction and self-respect. I now focus on engaging with women who are aligned with my values and single women without children, who understand and respect the principles of indigenous alignment and mutual respect. This is the shift I'm fostering relationships that are genuine and balanced and free from manipulation and toxic dynamics. This period of reflection has been essential in maintaining my personal integrity, dignity, preserving my energy, and ensuring that my connections are meaningful and aligned with the life and community I am building. I am learning to trust my instincts, recognizing red flags early, and honoring both of my boundaries and the natural flow of the and authentic relationships. My relationship values and personal standards. At this stage of my life, I'm focusing on engaging with women who truly align with my value. I seek women without children who understand, respect, and principle of indigenous alignment, cultural integrity, and mutual respect. I want a partner who honors me and my heritage and my indigenous status, and who is drawn to the qualities of a real man: strength, guidance, and authenticity. I realize and I recognize that meaningful connections require patience and alignment. As a Taurus, I bring passionate loyalty, of course, and depth and feeling to relationships. So I have to be careful. I am diligent and grounded in my approach to love and intimacy and partnership. I value women who are equally committed to honesty and mature growth and respect, and who are ready to share with a connection that is both authentic and nurturing, not toxic. This intention reflects not only my personal desires, but always my commitment to creating relationships that honor the natural balance between man and woman. As a way of the cultural and spiritual traditions I uphold, I seek a partner who will participate in loyalty, embracement, and passion in a genuine way, and is ready to build a relationship rooted in trust, respect, and shared value, other than destroying and extraction. By holding these standards, I ensure that the relationship I cultivate are aligned with my life and my culture and my personal integrity, and rather than being shaped by manipulation, narcissism, toxic behavior, imbalance, or external pressure, especially external pressure, peer pressure, psychological manipulation as pressure. My focus is on connecting that is deep, reciprocal, and meaningful, where both partners can thrive and honor each other fully, sustainable living for all people, and surpassing 7 generational thinking. Interference and ownership I have in my personal boundaries. I'm going to talk about that process. In addition to my personal relationship reflections, I have been processing and experiencing involvement and interference with my work and personal life. Certain individuals often connect to each other, have repeatedly created patterns of destruction around my projects or distraction around my projects, particularly about my Level Up magazine, their trademark infringement. I have observed these actions through appearance and design, legal design, to prevent me from receiving a fair recognition and compensation for my work that I produce and the ownership that I maintain. At times, I have uncovered the involvement of outside parties, including individuals acting in investigative or supervisory capabilities who seems unwillingly to see me succeed or claim what they are rightfully, or claim what is rightfully mine. These patterns have been particularly difficult to navigate as they intentionally, with a deeply personal loss and personal attacks, I have endured, observing harm, including the recent past of my grandma and my long-lasting trauma of my cousin being murdered here in Chicago after coming back. During this time, I have been especially challenged to maintain family cohesiveness and personal stability outside enforcement interface with the natural order and family and community support. These experiences has and reinforced the importance of boundaries, clarity in the work and personal life. I recognize that some individuals may attempt to manipulate circumstances or exploitation of vulnerability, whether intentionally or to neglect, or that to impact both professional and familial structure. Documenting these observations in my journey is essential for maintaining perspective, protection of my work, and ensuring that I honor my memory and legacy of my family, while assisting my stewardship of livelihood to be honored, not undermined. Through reflection, I'm learning to navigate these dynamics with strength, patience, and due diligence of wide traumatic understanding. Holding the truth to my principle and maintaining focus on my growth, cultural alignment, and personal dignity, I challenge underscore my, the value of cultivating relationship projects and community that are aligned with respect and reciprocation of mutual understanding, and the distance myself. So I distance myself from those who undermine my sense of stability and ownership and family cohesiveness. Ashe. Love my heart, light as a feather. I see you, as Avatar say.